Alrighty, we are back to the future, episode number 5, season 2. I say that because Ken is no longer with us, just at least for this episode.
Yeah, you
Uh,
still
yeah, it is back to the Rough Draft Podcast, season 1, basically. Just me and Andy today, 2-man show. So pretty happy that well, we're not happy that Ken's not here, but happy to at least have a show. We've been we've been slacking this year, so we'll have to pick it up next year. But we'll try to get as many shows out as we can. We have 6 days left until the draft. So we're recording this on Friday before the draft, less than a week away from Dallas. Andy, get excited, say excited. Am I right?
Oh, I'm friggin' pumped. I'll be in New York. A lot of draft picks to be made. Pats may get a quarterback, may trade up. It's going to be great. See Ken's reaction to maybe Baker Mayfield. It's going to be great.
That'll be good. There's been a lot of rumors swirling. We'll get to those later on in the show. But we would be remiss if we didn't bring up our top 5. So this week we're going to flip to the defensive side of the ball. We've been hitting the offensive side of the ball all year, season 2. So now we'll flip to the defensive side of the ball, and playmakers make plays. You play good, they pay good. What is it? Look good, play good, whatever Dion says. So those flashy divas on the defensive side of the ball who can't catch, otherwise they'd play receiver. The cornerbacks, pretty good class, I think, in my opinion. This is a tough top 5.
Very deep, and the top guys are definitely talented, worthy of first-round consideration.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I like some of the comps here with these guys coming out. So it'll be good to see. And, you can never have too many corners. As we've seen over the years, sometimes the third guy along has been just as important as the first guy on the depth chart. And
100%.
even special teams plays a big role into these things. So it'll be interesting to see. So top 5, Andy, why don't you lead it off, man? Who do you got number 1?
So yeah, number 1 or number 5?
Which way you want to do it?
Let's go 5-1. Why not?
5-1. You got it.
Sweet. So number 5, this guy's a huge playmaker. I think he led the NCAA interceptions. Josh Jackson out of Iowa. Similar to his teammate last year, Desmond King, kind of an off man, primarily zone corner who just has incredible ball skills. I think he compares to, when Alteron Werner used to be good, Ross Cockrell, a little better than him. But his negatives to me, to be 5th instead of higher, I don't trust his hip turn and change of pace and man coverage. But I think in the next level, he'll play off. He'll make a lot of plays on the ball. And I think if you run a primary zone defense, he could be a star.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that, he reminds me of who came out of Iowa last year. Des King, you said, right?
King, yeah.
So I don't know. I see a lot of Des King in his game, maybe just because they played together. And I think Iowa gets pretty underrated when it comes down to it, as far as just like, guys coming in the draft, unless you're an offensive lineman, because they're known for the power offense, right. Defensive side of the ball. They haven't really put out that many guys really defensively, besides a few guys over the years. Now they have Josie Jewell too, defensively, the linebacker spot, who's going to be drafted probably 3rd, 4th round kind of player. So he'll be it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. He's not my number 5 guy. My number 5 guy comes from I think this school self-proclaims themselves as DBU, but so does every other school, is LSU's Dante Jackson. Dante Jackson is really a track guy. Arguably could be one of the fastest guys in this draft. He's a really interesting prospect for me. Because I like the way that he breaks on the ball with his speed. Who do I have him comp to? Let me see. Look at my notes here. I actually have him comp to a New York Giant, Janoris Jenkins. I like the way he breaks on the ball. Like I said, his speed is a huge factor. I could see him coming in, playing even the slot and special teams right away. Again, that part of my top 5 anyway is close, but it's one of those things that I think his speed will separate him apart. And they have Tolliver also, who's in the draft, who people have got a lot of looks at. And I think maybe some people would put Isaiah Oliver, depending on when you hear the rest of the top 5. But I really like Josh Jackson just because of his speed, and I think that's what's going to translate for him moving forward into the NFL and help him be a successful corner. And I think he'll also be a big special teams guy moving forward. So he's my number 5. So
Yeah, definitely can be a gunner too, like you said on special teams. Speed.
Mhm.
So then at number 4, I got Isaiah Oliver, as you previously mentioned, out of Colorado.
Yep.
They're not quite DBU, but they've had a track record growing of cornerbacks. Ken Crawley with the Saints, Awuzie Cowboys, Witherspoon with the 49ers. They run a tight man coverage scheme, and he's your classic 6'1" outside corner, maybe Eric Rowe type guy, Tre'Davious White. He's not like an elite 6'1" corner like Talib, but I think he stays with people in man, and he's great perimeter corner. I think you put him in a man scheme on the outside, he can be physical, take away the taller, bigger physical receivers in the game. You don't want him on a Doug Baldwin, Antonio Brown type. So similar to Josh Jackson for me, a scheme-specific corner, but I do like his game a lot.
Yeah. Isaiah Oliver is one of those guys who I think you heard about last year when they had Chidobe Awuzie, and I'm blanking on the other guy that they had come out of that secondary also last year. But he was the guy who a lot of people were saying would be even better than those guys. And, his rise has been one of the quicker ones I think I've seen from any player from one year to the next. And he just keeps ascending. But yeah, I like him too. He's actually not in my top 5, but I do like him. And I'd probably say he's probably tied for 5th, borderline for me. My number 4 guy is the guy you had at number 5 is Josh Jackson. I love his ball skills. I mean, that's what I think makes him. I think there was a game he had about 3 picks in one game.
Ohio State, maybe.
Yeah, no question. He's a ball hawk. I mean, there's the way he goes up and gets the ball and positions himself is, I think, bar none to anyone else in this draft. Maybe Denzel Ward, who's also like one of those top flight kind of guys in this draft. But just like Iowa, he plays that physical style football. I actually have him comped to, let me see my notes. I think I had Chris Harris, I want to say. Was Chris Harris my guy? No, I'm sorry, Brent Grimes. I had Brent Grimes. So I like what's that? Say again?
I like that for.
Yeah, Brent Grimes. I think just like that nasty, get in your face kind of, fast guy. Like I said, I think he'd actually fit probably pretty well in like a Tampa Bay scheme, although they have Hargraves and like those smaller corners. But Brent Grimes for me is my comp for Josh Jackson. And I think Josh Jackson, personally, I think all these corners could have major, major impacts year one. I don't really see much bust with a lot of these guys. Maybe a guy that I'll get to next just because of the level of competition, some would say. But I think that they're all very much day one starters, if not third corners right away, coming in. All from big-time schools, too, big-time programs who've put out corners and defensive backs in the past. So Josh Jackson is my number 4 guy on the list. So number 3.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that in the sense that as long as you get these guys in the right system and a place to succeed, I think all these guys could have a great career. They play the system well. So, but then for number 3, these where I think the corners start separating themselves. I have these 3 guys definitely above the rest. Jay Alexander out of Louisville.
Yep.
My 20th overall player, third corner. I just think he's complete man and zone coverage, sticks with receivers, physical in the run game, can press a bit. He's similar to maybe Casey Hayward out of L.A. That's his high end. Then his low end might be Logan Ryan, a guy who can play primarily man coverage, but also zone, a little off. And the only real weakness with his game that he's 5'10", and that's not ideal in the NFL. Obviously, you'd like 5'11", 6 feet. And he's been hurt in the past. But one thing that is clear is when he's hurt, Louisville's defense really took a step back. You could see the impact he made. So I think he's very safe. He has a swagger to him. If you've heard him on NFL Network, I'm a fan. Really only heights the negative here, and he'll be a number 1 corner or high-end 2 for a team for many years.
Yeah. Jair Alexander, I like a lot. I think I wrote to you yesterday about that. I'm a big, big fan of his.
Yep.
My number 3 guy has a little bit of character concerns, maybe a big reason why he's number 3. UCF's Mike Hughes. He originally started off at University of North Carolina. was a Tar Heel. He left the team, unfortunately, for violating some team rules. And I believe there's a situation out there where he had a sexual assault that just came out. I saw today. He's been telling teams about that. I comp him to Aqib Talib.
Nice.
He again, he's another guy who's a really physical man corner. When I watch his film, he definitely could go up and get the ball. I think he's a little high in some of the things he does. His hip bend isn't the best, but I really do like Mike Hughes. And I think another situation that could hurt him is his playing time. So he played at UCF. He got kind of kicked out. He went to JUCO. But I think you get him into an NFL situation, NFL training program. He gets bigger, stronger, gets the experience. I think his best football is ahead of him. He needs to improve a little bit when it comes to tackling. He seems to be a little weak there. And I'm not the biggest fan on corners who can't tackle. I really do like corners who can tackle. I think that's obviously, it sounds very stupid to say, but that's important. And I think some people don't value that as much. They say, well, if you can just lock the guy down or you're a ball hawk. But listen, when you run the ball at them, if they're just going to whiff, no one really wants that at all on the field. So I think that's one thing he'll definitely have to improve on moving forward. But I do think his best football is ahead of him. So I have him at number 3. And I think his physical style of play will help him a lot. And I noticed that, I think, with all these guys. I think they're all, for the most part, pretty physical man corners, at least in my top 5. He's not – Mike Hughes isn't the biggest guy. That could be a big knock on him. But I'm pretty sure, right, neither was Marshawn Lattimore last year. He's not the biggest guy, I believe, right? He's 5'10".
He's a little taller, but I don't think he's 6+. He might
right.
be 5.
Yeah, he's not Isaiah Oliver, right, who's 6'1".
No.
Not who's the kid that got drafted out of West Virginia last year from the Eagles? Russell Douglas.
Oh, yeah, that guy's huge.
He's 6'3". Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie's don't grow on trees. So although that's the brand of football that has been popular lately, Richard Sherman's and stuff like that, Brandon Browners, I think there's definitely a spot for those guys who could go up and get the ball and be tough and definitely counteract their advantage or disadvantage, with their size. So Mike Hughes, my number 3 guy.
So then, piggybacking off that, just slightly above Alexander, I have Mike Hughes number 2. You touched on plenty of it. I think you summed it up pretty well. I will say his number 1 trait that just sticks out when I watch him and why I have him very high. He plays like 110 miles an hour, just everything in coverage. If his recovery speed is great when the ball's in there, I love that. It reminded me of Lattimore last year. Not as good, but just if he's beat, he can recover. Like you say, his tackling is very inconsistent, but because he's looking to kill the receivers, he's just flying down the line and he can whiff. So
could be too aggressive, yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully that could be coached up. It's not like he's timid. Some corners don't give a crap. But obviously you touched on his negatives. And I think he reminds me when Butler was on his game, Malcolm Butler, in 2016, just that physical in your face, 110 miles an hour. I like Talib. He's obviously small, a good comparison. And then maybe Pac-Man Jones with his second stint with the Bengals. Just physical corner, has a swagger to him. Plays high level and can come in, I think, be a number 1 corner in the league despite his not the biggest guy out there.
Sure. My number 2 guy, again, I keep bringing it back to him. He's one of my favorite corners I've actually ever watched. If Denzel Ward, sorry, spoiler, wasn't my number 1 and I think wasn't as good, I think he'd be very, very close to my number 1 guy. Jair Alexander from Louisville. He missed some time. I think he sprained his knee, which hurt him. But I equate him to Josh Norman. He's a bulldog. He's only 5'10", but he plays a little tall sometimes. And I just love the way he baits the quarterback. He's always watching with his eyes. He actually, when I watch him, I notice he leaves a little room of separation, which I notice I've seen a thing. Asante Samuel used to do this. He knows the routes so well that he can just kind of bait the quarterback and he reads it and just reacts so well that he picks it off, or he'll come over the middle for a big hit. I like Jair Alexander's game a ton. Again, I comp him to Josh Norman, just a outside, in your face kind of guy who he's gonna compete, he's gonna win, and I think he could also play in the nickel. I think he'll come in and be a solid number 2. I think a team like maybe the Jets. I know they have Mo Claiborne, but opposite Tremaine Johnson, Jair Alexander would be a great fit for them. Although he's obviously not going 3 overall, and I think Jair is a day one, round one guy. Maybe there's some concern with his knee. I don't know, but I really enjoy the way he plays a lot. But that's not to say my number one guy I don't like just as much, because I do. So, Andy, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So then, obviously, number one, pretty much everyone's number one corner in this draft, unanimous. Denzel Ward, Ohio State. He's a 99 percentile athlete, basically. All his combine testing, elite hip turn, mirror, just an elite man coverage guy at the next level. Not a lot to say. Chris Harris is a great comp because you can play in the slot, the outside. Not the biggest guy, and the only real knock I have on him, especially against Indiana, bigger receivers can bully him to catches. Like, he'll be right there in the coverage, but you could just catch over him. But
Yep.
a smart coach will obviously put him on receivers that make sense. He could not erase, but limit Antonio Brown, the Baldwins of the world, the smaller guys. So I think Harris is a great comp for him, just an elite man coverage, Pro Bowl type corner that can play in the slot. I don't think he's not as good as last year's his teammate Lattimore. I don't see upside there, but obviously no knock to him. He's a great corner.
Yeah, I think you hit on it, especially when you said like his hip turn is really good. He does a good job staying on the hip. A lot of the Ohio State corners have done that the past 3 years. You know, you look at even Bradley Roby, Eli Apple, when he was coming out, he did do a good job of that. Please don't get me started on that conversation, but in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, I really like him. He hits. He's not afraid to hit. He can run. He was a track guy. You know, he grew up in the track guy. He high points the ball very, very well. He gets a little off balance, but I think his recovery skills is good. When he gets contacted, he gets a little off balance, but I think that's something that's corrected. I don't think a big situation for him is going to be where he's, a grabby kind of guy. I think he relies on his technique as far as, like you said, staying on the hip, high pointing the football. Just a really solid prospect. Can run, very, very good feet, and I think that's what can help him, especially if it's a faster, quick twitch kind of guy. And if he's asked to do something coming in as a rookie, Andy, I'm sure that we, talk about this a little bit, but, sometimes guys come in as rookies and they're asked to, be the third corner or be the nickel guy. And maybe they don't feel as comfortable there because that's not what they did in college because they were the number one guy. So that's a possibility for him. And I could see that could be a negative for a guy like that. But I think at the end of the day, he's an outside number one corner. And I think he'll be very close, like you said, to Marshawn Lattimore, who came out last year. I comp him actually to I know you said Chris Harris, right? Was that?
Yeah.
Chris? I comp him to Casey Hayward.
I like that. That works.
Another smaller corner. He's 5'11", but again, he's really good with the ball on the ball, and he just kind of goes up and grabs it, and good feet. I think he has the ability to play inside, although he's obviously best suited to play outside. So that's top 5.
That was pretty quick.
Any other honorable mentions you could think of?
Yes. Definitely this guy's my 6th corner, just quick, and then I'll go to a couple sleepers. Carlton Davis, Auburn. He's the most physical corner in the draft, which can obviously be a negative if some receivers get by that press, but if you get him in a press scheme, I think teams will love him. He just wants to smother receivers at the line. He's Brandon Browner-esque, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You have a take on him?
On who is this on?
Carlton Davis.
Carlton Davis. Yeah, I like Carlton Davis. I mean, we saw him play actually
in person.
Bit. Yeah. I like Carlton Davis. I think he'll end up being a special teams guy his first year or two, just like every other Auburn corner. I mean, again, I think you look at these schools of these guys, the top 5 that we mentioned, and you see a pattern of, these guys have put out, these programs have put out corners year after year, where a team like Auburn, really hasn't. Alabama really hasn't had much success either with
Cyrus Jones
corners, right? Cyrus Jones and Marlon Humphrey.
Milner.
You don't even know if he showed up last year. So yeah, I mean, there are certain schools I think that put out guys that, do well. I mean, even Colorado, again, recently they've had a couple good DBs come out. So I think you see a pattern there. I like Carlton Davis. I think he's definitely one of those guys. I would personally Pick. I like the corner from Stanford. Drawing a blank on his name right now.
Meeks.
Meeks, Quentin Meeks. I like Quentin Meeks. I think Stanford is interesting, kind of prospect pool. They're just kind of one of those quiet, especially defensively. They just kind of get guys that get it done. I like Quentin Meeks. He's just an honorable mention for me. And then another guy I like is actually MJ Stewart from North Carolina. I think he's a really good man corner. He struggles with tackling a little bit, but he's a guy that I enjoy watching. And then a couple of the Alabama guys I like. Levi Brown, I'm actually a fan of.
Levi Wallace.
Oh, Wallace, yes,
Yeah,
Levi Brown.
I'm a fan of him too. He's one of my guys.
I like Levi Wallace. I like him better than Anthony Everett or Averett. Sorry,
I agree.
I like Levi Wallace a lot because he was the second corner there, and he got thrown out a lot. And for the most part, he was pretty much a shutdown guy. And I think, a lot of times you see at Alabama those second, third string guys who have a chance to play, who aren't the top tier guys, actually succeed very much so in the league. Because once they're called on, again, they're still that second, third guy in the NFL, but they'll get it done. And I like Levi Wallace a lot. He's definitely, I think, a sleeper.
Yeah, he was one of my 2 sleepers. I love his game. And obviously you said to go from a walk-on or whatever intramural football team all the way to starting for Alabama is impressive.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. And then just one quick guy I like is Isaac. Probably not pronouncing this right. Isaac Yiadom out of Boston College.
Oh yeah,
local kid.
He come up and hit you. I like him.
Yeah, he's like he could even move to maybe. I think he's very versatile. You could draft him in the 3rd, 4th round. Maybe try him out at strong safety. I think he has the hips to be an outside corner, maybe a 3rd corner, but just a smart player, sound in coverage, and like you say, he's very physical, big dude. I think he come in and compete in the secondary and have a role.
Now here's a guy I'm thinking about. I was thinking about him doing some mocks for the Giants, and mid round guy. Late day 2, maybe early day 3 kind of guy. Another school who's put out quite a bit of D-back talent. Jalen Ramsey, Derwin James in this draft. Florida State corner Tavares McFadden. They had Ronald Darby. They've had some D-back talent. I kind of like him. He's 6'2". He's another one of those. If you're looking for one of those big frame corners, I think Tavares McFadden could be your guy again. He's a good man guy. And against in the red zone, you put him against a Des Bryant type player or Amari Cooper. Just again in the red zone, I think he could definitely be a player that a mid round guy that you get something out of him. A little slow. I mean, he ran like a 4.6-7 high.
Yeah, that'll crash his stock so you can get him in the mid rounds.
Right. So I mean, again, you're looking at a guy like Rasul Douglas last year who had a big role for the Eagles, a bigger guy. I think some teams look for that, and I think he could be a guy that could help a team out. So no, it's definitely interesting, and like you talk about, this is an interesting class for sure. With corner, I think very deep, especially in the mid rounds. You could get some quality starters that could come in and play for you.
Yeah, corner is definitely it's up there with maybe the deepest position, like quarterback. Just a lot of players that can come in and make an impact, and obviously the top end guys are great as well. It's definitely deep as well as top end, unlike receiver who kind of lacking in the top end.
Yeah, I agree, and I think touching on the quarterback position like we have, and now touching on the cornerback position, I think you're going to get a lot of guys who are not great, but they're going to be very good for you. You're not going to get a Hall of Fame guy. You're not going to get a, maybe a shutdown type corner like a Marshawn Lattimore, like you said. But I think you're going to get a really solid, 1, 2, or, even like, again, a third corner who's very important in this league now, about 60% with 3 corners on the field, that you're going to get a guy who's going to come in and play and be important to your team and not be a liability at that point.
Yeah, that's the key, because if you have one corner that's a liability in the field, Pats fans know this in some Super Bowls, it ruins the whole defense. You need strong corners. Even the Eagles defense, who had a loaded front 7, you saw the Pats kind of pick their low end corners apart, Jalen Mills, them. So sure. you need depth at corner big time.
Yep. So as the offensives get stronger, pass the ball more, so will the defensive backs in the backfield. So That'll be interesting. We'll definitely get into the safety position when Ken gets back. That'd be a good one to touch on. You got high-end guys like Minka and Derwin, and I'm a big fan of Ronnie Harrison, actually.
Justin Reed.
So Justin Reed, man, he's been a riser too. So I like Justin Reed. Eric Reed remains unsigned, his brother. Still, God only knows what happened with that. But anyway, we'll save that for another episode. So another thing I wanted to touch on with you, Andy, is there's been a lot of rumors floating around about, again, the quarterback position. I think for the first time in forever that I can really remember, if at all, this has been a draft that I think is the most unpredictable, especially when it comes to the quarterback and the top of the draft. There's been a lot of rumors about Baker Mayfield being linked to the Jets at 3, being linked to the Browns potentially at 1 or 4.
The Broncos too.
Right. I was just going to say the Broncos apparently love him. So do you see him falling past number 5? And do you think that if he does slide to 5, it's because maybe the Broncos trade out? Or what's your take on the whole Baker Mayfield kind of rising now a little bit later?
Yeah, definitely. I actually think I agree it's very unpredictable. Mayfield seems like he has the most smoke and fire right now to the Jets. Seems like a lot of people, McShay, Albright, a lot of different reporters are saying that should be the pick. And I think if the Jets somehow don't take him, I think Elway really likes him. So I think he's a top 5, as close as you can get to a lock. And even then, like you said, maybe the Bills or the Dolphins would trade up for him. So I think he's going to the Jets personally, but if he doesn't, someone's trading up for him. People realize his floor is too high, too accurate, and someone's going to come get him.
And that's something that I think I'm happy you touched on and said too accurate, because you look at a guy from Wyoming and Josh Allen who is not very accurate.
Not very accurate, no.
That's one of those things you can't really fix accuracy. I don't think that's not one of those things that it's taught. I think it's just you either have it or you don't. And I think if he doesn't go 1 or 4 to the Browns, I really do believe this. I think he could really fall. Maybe to 12 to Buffalo, and maybe that's a good situation for him to sit behind AJ and play in Buffalo, cold weather, big arm. I personally, my hatred for the guy.
Yeah.
I don't like him.
Hatred.
And my house will be lit on fire if the Giants take him at 2. But
Ken's not here to defend himself. He's a big fan.
I don't know, man. I don't know too many Jet fans who, at least Jet fans I know. I don't really know, honestly, Ken's take, but I know a lot of other Jet fans that I'm friends with. They are not happy if the Jets draft Josh Allen. I don't know. I feel like he could really fall. I mean, what do you think about that?
I could see him falling a bit. I just think these GMs. You could go down the list of strong arm quarterbacks that have been drafted high, and I think there's gonna be one GM out there who thinks they can fix him and make him a superstar, and they'll trade up for him. We'll see who it is come draft day, but there'll be one. It could be friggin' John Dorsey's. Like, you need big hands. Big hands
right.
Are very important, and obviously he has the biggest hands, so everyone's freaking out.
Right, and there's so much smoke in this draft, I think, more than ever.
Oh, so much misdirection. And that's a link to every quarterback in the draft.
So that's the other thing I was going to say, too. I'm happy you continue to make my segues easy. Josh Rosen has been linked to the Patriots.
Don't get me started.
That'd chance.
Be fantastic.
So
that'd be the video of a lifetime for
now. What is your take on what could be the cockiest quarterback room in NFL history with Josh Rosen and Tom Brady?
The competition too. Like, Brady would start, but
of course,
Rosen wouldn't back down. That's what would be so fascinating.
I think that would be a Jimmy G type of scenario for them. I think that puts them right back in the even better. Honestly, I think he obviously has more hype than Jimmy G did coming out of Eastern Illinois. But I think Josh Rosen to the Pats. Do you think that that's possible? I just don't see it.
I just think
give me a way how you think that that's possible. I'm curious to see.
Yeah, so you have to say. Obviously you need Donald to go above him, Allen, Mayfield, and then you need the Bills not to want Rosen. And then if Rosen's at 7, 8, or 9, especially 9, the 49ers connection with John Lynch, the Jimmy G trade, you send them 23 and 31 for 9. That's a spot a lot of people in New England are looking at that they could possibly get up, but my gut says he won't fall that far, but if he falls to 8 or 9, I think we're going to go up and get him. I can see why Belichick would love that type of quarterback,
sure.
Especially someone to challenge, like in the film room. Like you know Rosen's deal. Like he speaks his mind and stuff, and he wants like a challenge, and I can see that's just a great fit here. And Belichick would also do it, kind of nudge Brady a bit. Look, I got this stud QB2 coming for you again.
Right.
And I desperately want a quarterback, but if I had to predict, honestly, I don't know. I could see them drafting Lamar at 23. I know you've mocked him there, and I like that too. We're taking a quarterback. I just have no idea who.
Yeah, I think Lamar would be a good fit for the Pats. I think it gives him the opportunity to develop in the pro game.
Again, a couple years, hopefully.
Right, a couple years, which again, Tom Brady, because I'm sure he's going to play this year. So to all you New England fans who are listening, don't worry, he's going to play. But yeah, I think you get Lamar in there, and I don't think Josh Rosen is going to be negatively impacted from sitting if he has to in those types of situations. Yeah, I think he is the most pro ready to play right now tomorrow.
I agree
for somebody. So what would you say for Josh Rosen to get to 8 or 9?
Yep.
How would it have to fall in the draft for you?
Oh, let's do this.
Yeah, I want to see what you have to say about this. Yeah,
I'll do this on the fly. Let's see. Donald goes number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, the Giants take Saquon Barkley.
Okay.
3, the Jets, the smoke is real, Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
4, the Browns take Bradley Chubb, pair him with Myles Garrett.
Very possible. Very possible.
And then 5 is the big one. This is where it gets dicey for Rosen. The Bills trade up to 5 for Josh Allen, the cannon. And that's where now the teams have the QBs in 6, 7, 8, 9. Do the Dolphins want Rosen? Do they not like him? Do the Cardinals? And if the Cardinals and Dolphins aren't a fan of him, then you're looking at the Chargers, the Patriots, the Saints. That's where it could get dicey. But the key, obviously, do the Bills want Rosen? Then they're easily getting him. They have the capital. But if they want Josh Allen, then it gets fun.
Sure. That'll be interesting to see because I'm thinking about Miami.
That's the dark horse too.
And, a lot of people will say, like, will he put up with, will Adam Gase be able to deal with him? And will he be able to deal with Adam Gase? But I think, you look at, he dealt with Jay Cutler for a season. Jay Cutler doesn't seem to be the easiest
hardest working guy.
Personality. Yeah. So, I don't know if that's a thing to worry about. And don't forget, I know people like to rip him and write him off right away, but they still have Tannehill. It's not like they don't have anybody. It's not like
I agree.
No offense to Buffalo and A.J. McCarron, but A.J. McCarron hasn't done much as a starter.
The Bills, again, their quarterback. It just a matter who. The Dolphins, Tannehill's honestly okay when he's healthy. Better than okay. I think he's solid. He has no O-line. So. And
it's funny that we continue to go back to the quarterbacks. Like every episode, I feel like we go back to the quarterbacks. Every draft show, every draft mock, every whatever goes to the quarterbacks every time because it's one of those good, not top tier great. It's just I think they're all lumped together to be very good, and that's why everyone's going to try to take a run on this class. But it'll be definitely interesting. I still think Darnold's the guy at 1, man. I really do.
The Browns can't be like if you take Josh Allen. And I'm not as big as a hater as you have, but like you can't take him number 1. You just can't. And it's just simply like you could bust so hard. Sam Darnold has a floor. Josh Rosen has a floor. Mayfield has a floor. Like, come on, guys.
Now, do you buy the smoke that there's a potential that John Dorsey is in a dungeon potentially thinking about taking 2 quarterbacks? Do you think that that's true?
I get the theory, but
I do not. Oh,
you don't actually? Yeah, I'm with you. I won't even be nice. Like, no. First off, is the competition between 2? Would that even work? The snaps at practice? No.
But I will say this. Is there anything more Cleveland Brown
than taking 2? Imagine it's like, it's like Allen and like.
The only way I could justify that happening. The only way. And it's literally not possible is if they never had Tyrod Taylor in the fold.
Yeah, no. Maybe if they draft like I liked what the Skins did when they took Cousins in the 4th after IG3 second.
Sure. If you want to sit there and say you want to get Kyle Lauletta somewhere or
not 1 and 4, especially because you're gonna be. Do I want to? Yeah, I'll say it. You'll be guaranteed either Barkley or Chubb. Take one of the All Pros. Come on.
Exactly, and that's exactly right. You're guaranteed Bradley. And I think the way John Dorsey is, not to say he's Sashi Brown with the Moneyball situation, but he every GM values picks, to an extent. And he's going to be getting his phone rung off the hook from before. Again, if this was Sashi Brown, I could definitely see potentially moving at a 1. I actually really could.
Oh, no.
I don't think
that guy,
Dorsey's good.
he's like Carson Wentz. I don't like it.
Right.
Deshaun Watson, Trubisky. I don't like it. That was insane.
So, yeah, it's, I think that guy, again, was more of an analytics guy than a football guy. No offense to you. And
Oh,
Ken,
wow.
Analytics. Sorry, no shot at you. No free ads.
He played football. I'm the analytics guy. I feel it.
So, no, it'll be interesting to see. And again, I hate to say it, I hate to be that guy, but I think the draft does start with the New York Giants. I mean, I think that they're in a situation that is going to be the most intriguing. I think, especially with talking about trades. Now, do you think, as a Pats fan, as a non-Giants fan, because I want to hear your opinion, and then I'll give my bias. Do you think that they trade? Do you think that do you think they stay at 2?
I think based on first off, I like your GM in the sense he's very charismatic. He tells the truth.
He's also a New England guy, so you can't not like.
I didn't even know that.
He says quarterback. I like that instead of quarterback.
So yeah, you hear what he says, and I think quarterback. I want to rule it out. I think it's down to Barkley or trade out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's down to Barkley or trade out. I think there's a potential that they could trade down to 12 and maybe back up to 5 to grab a Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I think I think the potential for that and the thinking behind that is they don't have a pick past round 5. They have 2 number 3s, but they're tied for the fewest picks in the draft. So I think
I would trade out. My opinion since the first episode.
And I would too.
You would? Okay, cool.
And I would too. And I'm at that point where, call me crazy, but the reason someone's going to trade up to 2 is not for Saquon Barkley, right?
No.
And they're going to trade for a quarterback, right? And unless John Dorsey, that'll be interesting because then that'll ask the question: is John Dorsey value Saquon Barkley, or does he value picks? Because they'll either take Barkley, I think, because I feel like maybe they take Chubb. Maybe they take Chubb, and that would work into what I'm trying to say here. But I think there's a potential for the Giants to eventually go to that 5 spot, whether they go from down to 12 and then 5 or just 5. I don't know. And they can end up with one of the 3 big guys, in my opinion, the non-quarterbacks.
The best 3 players in the draft, yeah.
And I think those are the best 3 players in the draft.
I agree. I have Rosen, but the 3 non-quarterbacks, yeah. And right. I actually like that idea because you're right. You're guaranteed one of them at 5 too. I think Chubb or Barkley would be there. Wow, that's a good idea.
And I think that's the point of the potential trading up at that point. It's going to be for a quarterback. So someone's going to trade to 2 for a quarterback. The Jets are definitely taking a quarterback at 3. 4 is where it gets interesting again because it's either someone's trading up for a quarterback and the Browns say, well, we have our quarterback. We'll just get more picks and move down, who knows, maybe 6, 7 spots. And then you have the Giants potentially, or you have maybe a team like the Broncos taking, Bradley Chubb, or they just released C.J. Anderson, so maybe they could go grab Saquon Barkley at 5. It would be very interesting to see. If the Giants trade down to 12, they're not getting Nelson, Chubb, or Barkley, but they also now have 2 first-round picks and way more capital. I'm sure that the Bills, because that trade would be with the Bills, I could see that being a Ricky Williams type trade.
It would be so expensive. That's why I think the Bills are going to trade a 5. If they trade a 2 and it's Josh Allen, that'll be a sight to see.
And I have a hot take that just came into my head.
Let's do it.
Hear me out on this. The Giants will trade with the Bills.
Here we go.
For 12.
Got it.
22. A second. 2 thirds.
A third.
And Kelvin Benjamin.
Are the Bills not having receivers? I like the rest.
Here's my reason.
Okay.
Here's my reasoning behind that. Okay. Dave Gettleman drafted Kelvin Benjamin.
And he traded him, right? Where are you going?
No, he was gone.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
He was gone before they traded him. And the Giants just released Brandon Marshall, their red zone, big-bodied receiver.
They need an X.
They need an X. It's not going to happen, but
No, that's actually fair because he did. No, I get that. The picks make sense too. Like I think that's how much it's going to cost.
And the fact that they did it before, and if you want to argue and take out one of the thirds,
Yeah, whatever.
and Kelvin Benjamin, whatever it is, I think that Kelvin Benjamin could be part of that trade. I think that the Bills are ready to give up everything for their guy. And I think maybe there's a potential framework of a deal in place.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe that's why the Giants released Brandon Marshall. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it's Dez, yada, 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 whatever people want to say. So, interesting. So you think, moving back to the Patriots now because we're back on your path. You have 23?
23 and 31.
31. So you think Lamar is definitely your guy at one of those picks?
Definitely strong. I think he's put me on the spot. I think he's Belichick and McDaniel's guy. I think he is.
Okay. All right. And what if he goes to Arizona or Miami at some point?
Then
what do you do?
I think you trade 23 and 43 to like 14 or 13.
And so you think that they really do move up then at the end of the day?
For the quarterback, I'll predict. I think they're going for Jackson and Rosen. I do. I think they know they can't get Jackson at 23. So with the latest buzz that he's going top 20.
Yeah.
If they get neither, then you're talking about Rudolph, Lauletta. Then like there's not a big drop off, but like more the tier 2.
I would say there's a big drop off. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's an astronomical drop off, but there is a big drop off.
But you get the difference between like Rudolph. Yeah, the top 5,
right?
Top 4, and then Lamar. But
yeah, interesting.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. One more thing I wanted to touch on, and then we will wrap it up. There's been some buzz about another prospect possibly leapfrogging my guy who I had as the number 1 offensive tackle in this draft, Mike McGlinchey. There's been a lot of talk that Kolton Miller will be taken before either Connor Williams or Mike McGlinchey, whoever you want to say that. Personally, I think that Connor Williams is even better than Kolton Miller. Although it doesn't seem because of his injury history, maybe that they will take him there. What do you think about that? And what's your take on all that kind of stuff that happens with risers? And I mean, do you buy it? Do you think he's a better prospect?
Yeah. First off, obviously you're the offensive lineman guy. I wasn't a big fan of Cam Robinson last year, and I think he was really good. So yeah, he started every snap for the Jaguars. Obviously, a big part of that turnaround. But I do have Kolton Miller at 1, but it's so tough with these guys. They're all clumped, like him and McGlinchey and Connor Williams. And also, I do like Orlando Brown. He's massive. I get it.
See, it was funny. I was just talking to my buddy about Orlando Brown. They had a documentary on him on NFL Network, and he reminds me so much of Eric Flowers. It's kind of scary.
I can see. I 100% get that. But the cool thing is, you can get him later than Eric Flowers. Not to be mean.
And that's 100% true. And that's something that I would do. And I think any GM would, if you were to comp him to Eric Flowers and say, okay, you get Eric Flowers at 9, or you get Orlando Brown in the 3rd round.
Yep, and you can pretend if Eric Flowers had Dante Scarnecchia, for example. You never know what happens. So
I agree. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think the difference between Orlando Brown and Eric Flowers, real quick, and I'll touch on the McGlinchey thing. I think Orlando Brown is much more mature. Eric Flowers will rather go work out with his father than go to like an offensive line school to work out. Oh. He doesn't show up to the Giants voluntary, in air quotes, if anyone can.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he didn't. He was the only player on the roster who did not show up.
Wait, this year?
This year.
It's like make or break. He's the right tackle if he wants to stay in the league.
And I don't think he's the right tackle when it comes down to it.
Okay, good.
I know they penciled him in there, but I think there's going to be a guy like a Alex Kappa, who I mocked last episode, or
there's
Isaiah Wynn if he stays at tackle. Hell, I'll draft Connor Williams if he's there at the top of day 2. So going back to the McGlinchey thing, I think Mike McGlinchey is obviously the number 1 tackle in this draft, and he's been, in my opinion, since day 1. And I think it's just a bunch of BS. I think when it comes down to it, GMs are smart enough to realize this also, and they go back to, hey, this was our number 1 guy from day 1. Like, we're not going to buy into this crap, this, that, the other thing. Like, he's our guy. And that's also why you may see, like, Orlando Brown go earlier than most people have been expecting. Because you put on the tape, and he's, like, arguably, like, the 3rd, 4th best tackle who could go in the 2nd round, I just think Colton Miller doesn't come from a pro style offense. I think he has a lot more flaws to his game. I mean, Mike McGlinchey comes from Notre Dame, where they definitely run more of a pro style. It's still spread, but it's a little bit more pro style. And their offensive line coach is now the offensive line coach with the Bears. So Harry Hiestand is like one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. I still think Mike McGlinchey is he's my OT number one. Colton Miller is definitely number two. There's no question about that. But I hate when they overanalyze guys so much at this time of year that it like may affect now.
Their stock.
Rumors, swirling. And I saw a thing even today with Darius Geis not being the number two running back taken.
We just need the draft at this point. Too many down.
It's at the point where I'm just gonna throw up if they don't. No, I'm just kidding. So that is for me. That is it. Andy, do you have any takes? Happy 420, by the way. I don't know if any of our listeners do any of that garbage, but I do not.
Nah, shout out to my buddy's birthday, 420. I think he celebrates the festivities today.
Okay, with vitamins. He's a big vitamins guy. Okay.
Vitamins. But yeah, any takes? I dropped them with the quarterbacks. I don't know, man. I'm excited. I want to see what team does what the F move. You know, someone's gonna move up crazy or something.
Yeah, I think like last year, Mitch Trubisky, that trade up was a surprise. The Mahomes trade up was a surprise by Kansas City. I would not be as surprised. I think there's going to be a lot of trades this year in the first round. That'll be another thing I think we'll see. And if not, it'll be one of the biggest disappointing first rounds, I think, because of the hype.
I'm ready.
But we're ready for it. No leaks, finally. That's been reported. ESPN and NFL Network have agreed to not tease or leak the picks. Thank God for that, because we always struggle with that. No Twitter. We'll put our phones away.
Definitely for day one, no Twitter.
We're potentially thinking about going Facebook Live.
Oh, that'd be great. We'll decide maybe.
Maybe we'll see. We don't like to really show our faces. That's why we're podcast people. We're not very visual. We're pretty ugly. Our faces aren't meant for this. So that's fine. Andy, any parting thoughts? You're good?
I'm good for hopefully get a few more episodes in and get to draft.
Thank God we didn't have Ken. Woo! No, I'm just kidding. But it was good to be back. Two guys again, one cup. No, I'm just kidding. One show. And I just had to throw in some humor at the end of this because why not? We are 6 days away. It's big time. We're ready to roll. Excited, to say the least. So with that, I'm Matt Genatino, Andy Prowls on the other side of the glass, as they say in radio biz in Massachusetts. All right, we'll see you guys probably later on this week with another episode, this time with Mr. Analytics Ken.
See you guys.
All right.